All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording on Sunday evening. We're going to talk today about Jannik Sinner, who's a naughty boy and is going to get a 3-month suspension. We're going to talk about Manchester City, who are maybe a naughty team, not naughty team. We'll find out soon when the sanctions or non-sanctions finally get handed down. We're going to talk about them in the Premier League and other repercussions out of the weekend in England. And then we'll talk about Ludvig Aberg and other favourites at the Masters after Ludvig won the Genesis. But let's start off with Jannik, who gets a 3-month suspension. I guess 2 questions, Drew. 1, your moral response, and then 2, can anything be bet on out of this?
Jay, the tennis world is buzzing. And it has nothing to do with Jannik Sinner. It is Joao Fonseca season, Jay. He takes down Buenos Aires. It was a remarkable run for the young man. And we are very fixed on the rise of this Brazilian star. We don't care about what formalities Sinner has violated in terms of his trainer rubbing him down with a very, very known and identifiable steroid, which it was such a wild card when that news hit the wire last year. Like nobody's stupid enough to think they could get away with this. And that kind of made his explanation somewhat plausible, and that made sort of the inaction somewhat plausible, or at least like understandable. Like I didn't really have like a big, oh my gosh, this is a huge. There were people around the world of tennis that were really upset about it when the news broke that Sinner, had the failed tests, but it didn't really. He's never really been a guy that, to the eye, has been a question mark in my mind. And also, I'm not precious about this sort of thing. Like there are a lot of tennis players who I'm sure are kind of really working hard around the edges to keep their bodies right for what is a very grueling calendar. And so, I didn't really care much about it. And when WADA, actually Sinner, if you don't already know, like he didn't play the Olympics last year. And I kind of felt like that was him sort of throwing up a white flag and saying like, look, like this is a self-imposed punishment. Like I'm not going to compete in the Olympics. That would have been a big deal for him. And he elected not to do it. And I kind of felt like, okay, well, that's punishment that he deserves for this, I suppose. And let's move on. But WADA comes in with the appeal. They want their pound of flesh. They didn't feel like they got, a fair chance to really kind of make him feel the punishment of this mistake. And well, now we get it. It's probably the least satisfying suspension that you could have ever come up with. It's 3 months. He does not miss a slam this calendar. He will be back for his home tournament, the Italian Open, in the early portion of May. What does this mean for the pricing for the French Open? Well, first and foremost, Sinner will be in the field. We know that now, right? Like there was a little bit of potential for long tail misprice in the idea that you could have bet into French Open, Wimbledon, US Open, and surprise, there's no Sinner, in which case any bet you made that wasn't Sinner would have instantly had equity. Well, now that's not the case. He's going to compete in all 4 majors barring injury. And I think ultimately, pretty clearly the French Open is the least likely of these 4 for him to win. His ability to perform on clay has been pretty underwhelming, particularly head-to-head against Alcaraz, where, if you remember very, very memorably, Alcaraz and Sinner met head-to-head in best of 5. They went 5 last year at Roland Garros. At the time, Alcaraz was dealing with a super serious elbow injury, and his power and ability to create spin was just non-existent. He still beat Sinner. And so a full strength Alcaraz against Sinner on clay at Roland Garros this year, Alcaraz is probably like minus 300. And so I don't think ultimately this changes my opinion much about the French Open. I think this is still Alcaraz to lose. And I don't even think the gap between him and the next best player is Sinner, and it is pretty significant. Like I said, I would make Alcaraz somewhere in the ballpark of minus 300 head to head against Sinner. Sinner he amassed so many points at the end of last season, and those points do not come off until he goes past the start of those tournaments, right? So the way that the point scoring system works in tennis is you earn your points at whatever tournament, depending on what stage you get to, depending on how important that tournament is. And then those stay on, those inform your ranking until the next time that tournament is contested. And if you do not defend your points, then they come off, right? And so Sinner will not defend semifinal points at Indian Wells. He will not defend final points at Miami. He will not defend quarterfinal points at Monte Carlo, maybe semifinal. Let me just see. He was a semifinalist at Monte Carlo. He was a quarterfinalist in Madrid. So this is a non-trivial amount of points. It's about 1,900 points in total. Right now, Sinner has 11,000 points amassed, which means that if you take those 1,900 points away, Alcaraz is going to have to win basically all of these tournaments in his absence. He's going to have to win Indian Wells. He's going to have to win Miami. He's going to have to win Monte Carlo. He's going to have to win Madrid. And if he does all of that, then he will be the 1 seed for the French Open. Otherwise, Sinner's still going to be the 1 seed, even with the 3-month ban, which is insane. Now, Sinner will not finish world number 1 this year, I don't think. I think it would be pretty unlikely, almost impossible for him to beat Alcaraz for world number 1 unless Alcaraz misses a significant amount of time from injury or a doping ban, who knows. But ultimately, this to me clinches Alcaraz as world number 1 at the end of the calendar year. But I do think that Sinner's still going to be your 1 seed at both the French Open, Wimbledon, and probably the U.S. Open, just because of how good his fall was last year. And so, yes, it's still pretty clearly Sinner's world that we're living in. And Alcaraz is the rightful favorite for the French Open, and I think will win the French Open. And I don't think this really creates an easy and obvious betting opportunity. I do want to kind of circle back on Joao Fonseca, though. 18-year-old kid from Brazil, tearing it up right now in South America. Now, he did not have like a superlative run at Buenos Aires. He dropped a couple of sets to some players who, you raised a little bit of an eyebrow against, but like these Argentinians, he went head to head against Francisco Cerundolo, who is a bona fide top 20 player on his home turf, and he beat him in straight sets today. And it was a little bit rocky at the end. He had chances to serve it out twice. He couldn't do it. He went to the tiebreak, but in the tiebreak, Fonseca was superlative. He was so good. And I do think that him kind of backing that up with a run at his home tournament coming up in Rio is expected. You can still find him in like the 6-1 range, which I don't really get. Like, I kind of think he's just going to win this one too. The Brazilian crowd is going to be very heavily in his corner, I would say. And if there is someone who looks to have taken a winter vacation to South America for the paycheck, it looks like your 1 seed Zverev, who right now is plus 175 favorite to win this tournament. Okay, I'll believe it when I see it. I think this is now Joao Fonseca's time of the calendar to really flex, and I'm loving it.
What is his upside in slams and in terms of, does he have scope to win a Grand Slam this year, or is that a little bit beyond?
He's a year away. He, to me, and again, if you watch him, this is the first thing you're going to notice. He's a child. He has a very obvious baby face, which I'm guessing means he's not done growing. He could grow a couple more inches. He needs to put on about 20 more pounds. But the velocity he's able to generate on his ground strokes is just sublime. And in general, his feel for clay court tennis is very, very apparent. He burst onto the scene last year in surprising fashion in Rio with a couple of impressive wins. And then he went on to win the Next Gen Finals. Next Gen Finals is a little bit of a punchline. People don't really take that very seriously because it's not like standard format tennis, but he was awesome in the Next Gen Finals, and he was the rightful winner. And to back it up with his first career title this week was very cool. And he found his way. He had a couple, here's what you look for when you're looking for a guy who's going to ultimately get there one day. You want a guy who can show you that on a day he gets out of bed, he doesn't have his best stuff, he can still find a way to win. And I thought he did that very, very clearly in his quarterfinal win against Navoni. And at times he did it in his match, his final win today against Cerundolo. So I think 2026, I think he will ultimately, he will break through at some point. It will probably be the US Open. My gut feel for this calendar year is that I think he very likely could back up his Buenos Aires title with the title in Rio. I think he very likely could steal one of the European clay titles on the way to the French Open. He probably makes a quarterfinal, maybe a semifinal run at the French Open. And then the fatigue of having played all of that tennis as an 18-year-old child will probably wear on him to the point where people think he will be a threat for the US Open. They think he'll have his breakout moment and he'll probably underwhelm. But then he comes back for Australia next year. He's gained the weight, he's finished growing, and all of a sudden he is, a force to be reckoned with. So put a pin in US Open 2026 because that's Fonseca season to me.
Okay. Well, someone who could have used Joao Fonseca today, Drew, my beloved adopted Liverpool, as we transition seamlessly across the pond or wherever we're going to the Premier League. Did you watch any Premier League this weekend?
I mean, we beat the Wolves. It was ugly.
You drop B. There's no definite article. It's Wolves. Yeah.
We beat Wolves.
Everyone does. Yeah, it's like
we beat Wolves. We beat Wolverhampton.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not enjoying this Premier League season at all. I don't like these Liverpool games. It's not fun. The Everton game ruined my Wednesday or whatever day that was, and then this was very tense against Wolves.
Yes, it was.
Very, very tense. Where it's actually interesting from a betting perspective, the idea of how to price in fatigue, because I think that was extremely evident in this game, a match where Liverpool closed minus 470 favorites. They're up 2-0 at halftime, absolutely cruising. They have a third goal ruled out, which would have ended the match because Salah is offside by an inch. Then they have a penalty wiped off, which again would have ended the match. And that was correctly wiped off. Diogo Jota just shamelessly dove in the area.
Yep.
But Liverpool then concede, and then they just decide that we're done attacking. Like, we are completely done attacking. They didn't have a shot in the second half, which is the first time that's happened at Anfield in 21 years. They didn't register a shot and a half. And the only way that I could really explain it is that they played in midweek against Everton in the most grueling match imaginable, and Wolves did not play. And I think that was a pretty sizable rest advantage. But yeah, it is interesting because that seemed to be a little bit baked into the price, given that Wolves steamed a decent chunk heading into the match. But did the events of this weekend change your mind about any Premier League markets?
Well, as we talked last week, I'm a Bournemouth man now. I'm a Cherry. I'm a cherry. The Bournemouth, by the way, again, I know very little about Premier League other than just kind of crunching the numbers. But the Bournemouth patch, I always thought it looked like a polar bear, kind of. And I kind of assumed that they had some sort of polar bear. It's not. It's a person heading a football. It is a human being heading a football. But
like a polar bear.
Yeah, if you don't have the zoom in, if you're just looking at it on a flash score, it looks like a polar bear. So I always kind of assumed we were the polar bears or something like that. But no, we're the cherries.
Yes.
So yes, I'm a cherry man. And it was a good week to be a cherry. Nice result for them. Getting the head-to-head in particular against, Southampton was always, they were going to get that win. It didn't really feel like a sweat, but seeing the Hammers go down was nice. Nottingham going down was humongous. And I think ultimately this is now the top 4 bet for Bournemouth is going to come down to Nottingham and Bournemouth, in my opinion. Bournemouth right now sits 5th in the table. They have 43 points. There are no games in hand among any of the competitors. Everyone has played 25 draws at this point. 25 draws, 25 matches. And they have effectively a tie against Chelsea, but do have the tiebreaker. And I think ultimately Bournemouth is the team to beat to finish in the top 4 right now. So it was a big price, plus 750. this time. I don't know, last week when we talked about it. I have that price and another bet at 575 in pocket. And I feel pretty excited that this is real and this is happening. So I'm kind of dialed into a lot of the ancillary results up and down the standings here. Seeing Manchester City just absolutely throttle Newcastle, while ultimately I think, and I'll get your opinion on this in a moment, I think that pretty much locks in Man City as a likely top 4. Newcastle taking the loss was pretty big.
Yeah, Man City, I think, should cruise to top 4 so long as they don't get a points deduction, which I don't think is going to happen, but that is still looming, and it could be coming next month, which would be pretty insane this late in the season to kick them out of Champions League positions. But I would suspect that just based on all the context, all the reporting, the fact that, Haaland signed a deal for a decade, I think that they are likely not going to get a significant points deduction. But again, that's just calculated guesswork on my part. I do fear with our Liverpool facing Man City next week that Man City might have figured some stuff out by bringing in Nico Gonzalez, who was dominant against Newcastle, playing Omar Mamouche, who scored a hat-trick in like 20 minutes as well. Those guys, they just bring kind of pace and energy that team has just been sorely lacking all season. So we'll see. They haven't been good in big games all year. They were horrific against Real Madrid in the Champions League last week. They will have to go to Madrid midweek and then play Liverpool on a short week after that trip to Madrid with their season on the line. So hopefully they're a little exhausted for that one. But I think they're pretty clearly now, they've reestablished themselves as the third best team in the league behind Liverpool and Arsenal. And they were drifting towards being more in like the Newcastle-Bournemouth kind of range with how they were playing and also how they were priced. Like they were plus money at home to beat Newcastle, which before the season, you wouldn't have thought that City were going to be plus money at home to beat anyone. Bournemouth, I think, are looking in decent nick to get 4th or 5th, which would also see them qualify for the Champions League. I think they're less likely to get that than Chelsea, but their top 4 price ranges from plus 333, which I don't like so much, to plus 470, which I do like. So if you can get that upper end price, I think that is slightly good on the cherries. Sorry, were you going to say something?
I just wanted to ask your opinion on Liverpool.
Yeah.
My cash out has been hovering around 75% of what is due.
No, you can't do that. That's poison. You
okay.
You must ride with it. The thing is, and I really don't understand what's going on with the market and the market dynamics here. So, say on Polymarket, for instance, Liverpool, well, it's actually ticked up from 75 to 77% as we've been recording, but like it was 75% for a good chunk of the day. There's been $715 million traded on this market. Now it's a bit misleading. Well, it's a bit misleading because it's like people betting like $30 million on Brighton not to win the Premier League, 99.9, whatever. But it's by definition an extremely liquid market, and it's just not right. Like Liverpool are more than 75% to win the Premier League by.
What do you think the number is?
I think it's closer to 90%.
90.
And to get to a place where 75% is correct, you have to build in the assumption that Arsenal are better than Liverpool going forward. And there's just very little to support that. The market doesn't think that. Common sense would dictate, given that Arsenal's top 4 attacking players are all injured. And Kai Havertz, who is their only striker, is out for the season. Bukayo Saka, who is their best player, is still out for another month. Gabriel Martinelli, who is their 3rd best attacking player, he is out for at least a month with a hamstring. And then their backup striker, Gabriel Jesus, is out for the season with an ACL. They're getting by playing Ethan Nwaneri, who is sickeningly good and troubles me. But he was amazing, but he's 17 years old and he's going to have to play like every game the rest of the way after not really playing much football in his professional career. Mikel Merino, who came on and like saved the day against Leicester, playing as a striker, which he'd said he'd never played in his life. The idea that Mikel Merino, who's been, a midfielder his entire career, is now just going to be like the striker who leads Arsenal to the Premier League. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe he's just incredibly gifted for that role, but need to see a bit more of that. And I don't think that a great 10-minute cameo against the second worst team in the league is really proof that that is going to succeed. But the main thing is just like, there's 13 games left. Liverpool is 7 points clear of Arsenal. They're 7 goals ahead in goal difference. And another huge key is that when these two teams face each other, I believe the third last game of the season, that's at Anfield. That is a massive swing. Liverpool are going to be like minus 110 win, draw, win in that match. And it's just a lot. Like, it's not done, but the idea that Liverpool are only 75% with all of this, it just doesn't pass the smell test. So I don't really understand what the market is doing here. Arsenal are exceptional. I think they have the best defense in the league. That Nwaneri stepping up has really helped dull the loss of all their other attacking players. And maybe Marino is something. I don't think it's going to be, but who knows, it could be. So yeah, Arsenal, I don't think they're done by any means, but Liverpool, I think by pretty much any measure outside of the gambling market, are more than 75% to win the league.
That's a great breakdown. Can you talk me through your personal feelings about the Gunners picking your pocket, if that is, because this is Gunners or pool? Like, there's virtually 0% chance that anyone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not how you. Well, this is the beauty of gambling, Drew, is that having grown up an Arsenal fan my whole life, having watched games at 2 a.m. Melbourne time, growing up, having cried after Arsenal lost the 2006 Champions League final to Barcelona, I'll be flying across to Anfield wearing a Mo Salah jersey, in cheering for Liverpool to take down Arsenal, because ultimately we root for our book above everything else. There's no wholesomeness left.
So you're going to that Arsenal game, that Arsenal match?
Yeah. The only thing is the Premier League, they don't confirm their fixtures, times, and even days. They just have like, it's going to be this week. And then we'll figure out whether it's any day like Friday through Wednesday or whatever. But I have blocked that off, and I am planning to, and I've gotten approval from my wife to go over.
That's the one.
Given it will be quite a momentous personal occasion with what is at stake potentially. But I'd rather it was Man City that I could slay. But if it's got to be Arsenal, it's got to be Arsenal. Someone's got to die, and if it's got to be them, so be it. I do worry a little bit that Liverpool, this is really 3 games in a row, 3 matches that Liverpool have not really been at the races, but they've been getting away with it. And the only real important thing now is that they have a 7-point lead. And it's not like, even if they have a slight downturn in form, it's not like they're going to turn into pumpkins. Like, there's too much talent in the team. They're too good to completely melt from a talent perspective. So I think they're going to be okay. They have a huge week coming up where they go at Villa and then at City. And if they sweep those games, which is going to be like 3-1 or something to sweep them, then I think that's pretty much good night for the title race. If they get 4 points, that's fine. It's about probably, that's probably the modal expectation. I think is they get 4 points. If they get less, then it starts to get a little bit dicier, but they have a fair bit of wiggle room with 7 points to play with. So don't cash out at 75% implied value.
Okay.
Write it out.
Okay.
We'll just hope that the good guys prevail, and in this case, the good guys are Liverpool.
Okay. Well, I will expect to hear from you if you think that there is a must bet on Arsenal to win that head-to-head that you're at, if and when that gets there. And I will also say that yes, in their last 3 matches, the loss to Plymouth, the draw against Everton, the squeaker against Wolves, none of those were compelling, and the fatigue is real. They get a decent amount of relief in the month of March to get their legs under them before the home stretch here. And just before this most recent wobble from Poole, they thumped Tottenham 4-0, and they beat the bullies from Bournemouth 2-0. So, they were not that far away from some pretty impressive results from this squad. So I think
it's the Everton match, like that's it was like the last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. Like,
that was a big, emotional deal.
That one you've almost can't throw it out the window, but you have to, I think, kind of upgrade Liverpool's performance a little bit just because of the insane occasion. And then I think the repercussion of that insane occasion was a little bit of a letdown in the second half against Wolves. Now, that's potentially a rationalization, and we'll see how they do against Villa midweek. Because if they lose like 3-1 to Aston Villa, then then it's kind of alarm bells. But I don't think that's going to happen. And they have built this cushion for themselves. And the other thing too is like Arsenal. This isn't like previous years where it was Man City, Liverpool, where if you dropped a single point in the second half of the season, your title race was over. Like these teams are just drawing all the time. Right. Arsenal are unbeaten in 15, but they've drawn so much that they haven't gained a single point on Liverpool in this 15-match run of being unbeaten. So I suspect that right now I think Liverpool are a slightly better team than Arsenal because of the injury situation. I think when Arsenal get relatively whole, the teams will be about even. And Arsenal aren't going to get entirely whole because Havertz is out for the year. But when they do get the guys who do come back, they'll be around evenly matched, but Liverpool have a 7-point lead banked and goal difference, and that counts for a lot at this stage of the season. Anyway, we'll keep you we'll keep the listeners plugged in on our respective emotional states as the title race. There really is nothing like a Premier League title race, and we don't really have a super. It doesn't feel like a title race yet because it's 7 points, but even just the idea that a title race is around the corner with a slip up adds a huge dimension of drama, and it is an incredible product, albeit a sickening one for me to watch with this position of just wanting the season to be over and Liverpool to be crowned champions. Anyway, watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Barrios. They cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out with golf ball. Ludvig Aberg takes the Genesis over Maverick McNeely. What did you make of that performance and what that foretells about the players and the Masters coming up?
I thought we were going to start with Liv Adelaide. No? Joaquin Neiman? No? No, I didn't watch Liv Adelaide. No, the Genesis was freaking awesome. First of all, if you have not been paying attention to the way the golf is now being produced for the television, it feels like a new era. The camera work, the connection to the players, setup, approach, discussion with the cat, all of it is just freaking amazing. Like a visual spectacle. And then you combine that with, an all-time weather weekend at Torrey Pines, and it's just chef's kiss. Like it was magic. Saturday and Sunday. Could not tear my eyes away. That said, Åberg in particular, his performance was also pretty magical. It's kind of a funny deal what's going on with him right now. His kind of world ranking is high. His strokes gained on data golf is lower. So like, I think in general, that's kind of creating this situation where he has been a bet on price wise because the market is just kind of cool on him. And if you watched much of his performance, I thought over the weekend, it is very clear that I don't think anyone is stroking it better when it comes to approach in particular. His approach shots were just spectacular. Some of his decision making I thought was also really, really outstanding. Like his course management at the end of Saturday's round. Saturday, it got real squirrely late, and he was able to find some pretty innovative ways to avoid getting punished as it got pretty windy in the afternoon on Saturday. And in particular on the 18th, I thought his approach taking it into the greenside bunker instead of, really kind of forcing it to the pin and getting himself in trouble was pretty smart. And then, his approach was just dialed in, but the putts weren't quite dropping when it was really obviously scoring conditions this morning on, final round, before about 2 p.m. It was like everybody was scoring at will. It looked like Scotty was coming. Maverick McNeely put together an amazing Sunday performance, but Åberg was too cool, and he was too clutch down the stretch, and he is, in my opinion, a top 3 guy right now. The fact that you can kind of get him for just a shadow of the price of a Rory McIlroy is amazing. And I think the guys on Live really don't have much in the way of competition against these guys who are now competing in these elite tournaments on these signature events. I guess congratulations to McIlroy for winning the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, which was a signature event a couple weeks ago. But this was a much more competitive field, and what Åberg did was much more impressive to me.
Okay. Haven't been following golf as closely as in the midst of NFL season and soccer and NBA and NHL and everything. So I'm starting to get back into it now with the NFL done. And just looking at the Masters odds board, Scheffler 4-1, the favorite, McIlroy 8-1, and then Rahm, Åberg, Schauffele at 12-1, and then familiar faces, Bryson 20-1, Colin Morikawa 20-1. Hideki Matsuyama, Brooks Koepka follows. So do you think Åberg has separated himself from the Rahms and X-Mans of the world?
Surely. I mean, it's tough for me to get a strong read on what's going on with Xander from a health standpoint. It's also maybe a little bit of important context here. Åberg was pretty seriously hurt at the end of last year. Like, he could not squat down and read putts. His injuries was that significant, and it didn't feel to me like he was fully healthy until we saw him this weekend. He looks completely, he looks lean, he looks fit, and he was completely pain-free from what I could tell, just as you kind of saw him hitting some of the difficult shots that are presented at Torrey Pines. So I would put him second choice right now after Scotty, and honestly, Scotty's putter is still a problem. Like, it's comes and goes in rounds, in tournaments. It's not reliable. And, when you look at his current profile, the fact that he's positive in strokes gained putting to me feels like a mirage. I think ultimately you could have a little bit of a trapdoor situation unless he gets the right wave and a healthy lead and just has the mental advantage over the other players at Augusta. So, in the blind right now. And I know I will admit I had some Åberg this weekend, so I'm a little bit drinking the Kool-Aid, but if you said one shot, one kill for the Masters, who is it? For me, it's Luda.
Wow, Luda, the pride of Sweden, born in Eslöv, which I'm not entirely sure where that is off the top of my head.
Pretty sure he lives in like Missouri or something, but who's counting?
Looks like he lives in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee, there we go. He's a Florida man. He's not a Swedish man.
A Florida man via the Malmö region in Sweden. Very good. All right, well, we'll talk more golf as we lead up to the Players and the Masters, but we are done for now. So don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you soon.